Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the closing night of the Lonavala International Film Festival of India. I have a wonderful team with me who are going to talk about a great movie called Ghar, one of my personal favorites. I'm looking forward to discussing R.D. Burman's music with Divya. Before anything else, let me introduce you to all those who are here. I will go in order of those who are here on my screen. Starts with Sushil Agarwal. Sushilji is the CEO of Ultra Studios. Sushilji has been a friend for more than 30 years. I must tell you, when no one had faith in Salman, Ravina, anybody, it was Sushilji who actually came to the office and bought the video rights of Patthar Ke Phool and of Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman. So we've been friends from those days onwards. And I was having this discussion with Pravesh ji, and I was lamenting the fact that there are no more stakeholders in this industry. In my days, whether it was NNCP, to whom we are paying this tribute, or GPCP, or even people like Sushil Agarwal and Ramesh Taurani who came in later, they were owners of their companies. If there were profits, it was theirs. If there were losses, it was theirs. They had stakes in the industry, in the films that were being made. Today, there are no stakeholders. It is a studio and they are salaried employees, no matter how big that salary is. And they're taking over as head of IMPA and head of IMTA, etc., etc. And yet, one day he's working for a multiplex chain. The next day he's working for a studio. The third day he's working for a distributor. They are not genuine stakeholders. So I applaud Sushilji. He is one of the rare stakeholders of the industry even now, like Subhash Ghai is, like Rakesh Roshan is. They make their own films, they work on their own terms, and they are the people who have been the backbone of Bollywood. I also have with me Mr. Madhav Todi, the festival director, and who has kept this festival running against all odds for 5 years. And my dear friend Ananth Mahadevan, who's a filmmaker, writer, director, actor, television person, author, and 100 whatnots. I have with me Divya Solgama. Divya is a radio jockey, but his knowledge of cinema has made him a favorite, and he has actually created fans on the Lonavala International Film Festival of India. I would not have it any other way. Last but not least, my dear friend Pravesh Sippy, whom I've known ever since his father and GPCP used to hobnob in the corridors of NAS, and we were children who would look up at them and learn from them. And I think that wisdom is coming in great use now. I promise you one thing, Pravesh ji and Sushil ji, the industry is going to come to us in a few years and say, take us out of the mess that we've gotten ourselves into. And we will be there, hopefully, inshallah, to help them out.
Absolutely, give back.
So, impact. So, over to my favorite Ghar, my favorite Gulzar, my favorite R.D. Burman. It came to the Novelty Cinema and it ran for an astounding 11 weeks at the Novelty. I don't think they had the booking. And then they shifted it, but finally it did a Silver Jubilee in matinee shows. And I am especially connected to this particular film because the hero, Mr. Vinod Mehra, who was one of the gentlemen in this industry, was acting in Patthar Ke Phool when he died, my first major film. And I do remember getting his voice dubbed by Sachin Khedekar. You can't make out the difference. But to be shooting with him on a Friday and to hear he's dead on a Sunday was a shattering jolt. It taught me a little bit about life. But I owe that man a lot. He was a wonderful human being. R.D. Burman is my favorite filmmaker. Mr. Ananth Mahadevan, we took R.D. Burman's favorite songs and we made them into a movie called Dil Vil Pyar Vyar, where we engaged with original musicians and arrangers that had actually worked with Burman Sahab. So we're all here as big fans of your father's film, Pravesh, as big fans of Rekha. She did one of the most important and visionary roles. I want to start with that. To play a happily married woman who is raped brutally and the aftermath of rape. It is not a subject that anybody would choose, possibly except your father. I know GPC would have said, "Tumhara dimag kharab ho gaya, ye kya banata hai?" I know that, but it was visionary. And he did it and he pulled it off. He surrounded the film with sensitive music, lyrics, a sensitive actor like Vinod Mehra, because there was no point having a bigger star than him. It would disbalance the entire movie, you know. And Divya, when we talk about Rekha, the fact that she has happily worked with Vinod Mehra and Sajan Ki Saheli in Ghar, in Bindiya Chamkegi for Arun and Tarun Dutt, and even even in Pyar Ki Jeet with Shashi Kapoor and Vinod Mehra. So she has been very happy to work with her old stars, even when she became a bigger star, when she was Amitabh Bachchan's heroine, when she was Dharmendra's heroine. She still worked with Vinod Mehra, and it worked very well. So, first, Pravesh, on the vision behind making a film like Ghar, and then it'll be over to Divya for Rekha, and then Anand Saab, we will talk about R.D. Burman, and then we will get into heated arguments about the music, hopefully. Praveshji, over to you.
Dad, I think always was in a sense forward thinking to have made Vokonti and then Gumnam for the kind of movies they were and the way they were made. You know, that itself I think showed his mindset towards the kind of films that he would like to make. He always had the commerce up there and not in the back of his mind, but it was important and right up there in his face, in everyone's face. You know, it had to be commercially viable and a happy scenario for everyone. He always had that in mind. So, uh, but he this was really forward thinking. In 1978, Orthodox India, rape being the taboo it was then, it still is today. Um, to make a subject like this and give Rekha an opportunity to perform because she was more the glamorous, superstar kind of heroine. She had never really done one of these performing roles to that level. So I'd like actually to ask Anant about uh, his point of view on Ghar being made then and rape centric cinema and films as we've seen it in Bollywood. Can you throw some light on that, please?
There is a lovely line in one of the songs in the film. It says, "नींद सी रहती है, हल्का सा एक नशा रहता है." ये हल्का सा नशा नहीं है, ये नशा इतना गहरा है, आज तक ये नशा है हम लोगों के साथ. And that's why I feel Ghar is a very important film. It was made towards the end of the 70s, 1978, and I think Mr. Sippy crowned a wonderful decade with probably the most important film of his entire repertoire. And if I may dare say, the best film of his career. And I have a lot of reasons to say this, and I'll tell you why. When we look at rape today, and when we look at all the kind of films that are made, whether it's Matra or whether it is, Zakhmi or whether it is all that type, all you can think of in cinema over the last few 2 decades, probably about rape, was How to Avenge Rape, a story of retribution, and how it's more like a death wish rather than going incisively into the trauma that a rape victim undergoes. And when I remember when Manik Chatterjee wrote this film and then he directed it, and Gulzar Saab came on to doing the lyrics of the film. At that point, probably, see, it was only a 2 hour film, it was a 121-minute film. And they probably, when I saw the film, I thought they had a problem of, accommodating the so-called popular elements along with such a gripping, such a gruesome theme. And so the film started off with a middle-class couple. I mean, the usual rich-poor divide, and when they get married, looking for an accommodation in Bombay, and that's where the title Ghar came from. And all those lovely songs which started off Aajkal Pao Zameen Par, and all the other songs which came on, I suddenly thought that, they were taking their time to establish the couple, the happy couple, and how suddenly life would take such a gruesome turn when they go into the drive-in cinema, and that night turns out to be disastrous. But that is where the film became, today when I look back at it, it became very futuristic for me, because suddenly they did not make the leading man a vengeful hero. They did not make him a hero who would fight back the attackers, and they did not even make him fight back when the wife was being raped. And when she comes back, the trauma of two people trying to live with each other, the wife does not know how her husband would be thinking of her. The husband does not know what to think of himself. His own ego, his self esteem has been deflated. He doesn't know what the people around are thinking of him. He wonders why people are being sympathetic towards him. Is he being looked upon as a not as a man, namard jaisa, a man who could not save his own wife? So the second half, plunged you into, a very internal conflict between husband and wife, and how each one of them was trying to overcome their own demons rather than trying to find out who are the perpetrators of this crime. And that is what makes Ghar so different from so many. I mean, everything else I think that followed on Rape, there hasn't been this kind of a very, very sensitive, sensible, incisive, and very, mental probe into Rape. So that is why I feel, hats off to all those who were involved with the film at that point of time, 1978. That is about nearly 40 years back, and here we are, and we still do not have a film to match up to Ghar. Neither the drama. I mean, Vinod Mehra, as Vivek correctly pointed out, was the right choice because we needed a person who was soft, needed a person who was sympathetic. We needed a character who would not come across as a macho man, who could have fought back or who could have done something. Here was a vulnerable man. Here was a man with all his weaknesses. And here was a woman trying to overcome the nightmare of what happened to her. And here were two people, two souls trying to come together and help each other, get out of a trauma that wasn't their fault at all. That was the fault of a society that had gone wrong. And I know Divya would sort of, advocate for every number in the film. But for me, Phir Wahi Raat Hai, in the second half of the film, all the songs got over in the first half, but there was just one song in the second half of the film, Phir Wahi Raat Hai. And that's a song that has stayed with me, all these years and keeps haunting us. And I think it's a great closing film to have for the NNCP retrospective at the Lonavala International Film Festival. And to have a mainstream cinema maker like NNCP go for the jugular, and go straight for your throat and shock you with a
In
film.
1978, Ananth, and before we come to Divya, he actually probed their sexual relationships after the rape when she can't commit herself to him.
Right.
These are not things that you actually talked about in 1978. In fact, you didn't talk about them in 1988 as well.
Yeah,
It was right there in front of you in the bedroom
and it had a universal certificate too. It didn't have an E
because of
certificate.
the sensitivity. And
Yeah.
I will just say one last word on this film before I go to Divya. I made my first film with Zeenat Aman, and it was called Gawahi. And Zeenat ji told me that if Rekha hadn't done Ghar, she may not have done Insaf Ka Tarazu. Rekha actually opened the way for a lot of actresses to become brave, so to speak.
It
Divya,
was the most sensitive performance. I mean, you see her entire repertoire of films. I think Ghar is her
it's
best.
right there in the best, absolutely.
Yeah. Besides Asta with Bashu Bhattacharya.
Again, the same thing,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Divya,
Yeah, ji.
for you, Rekha and Ghar.
You know,
We'll come to the
Ghar,
music last because that's the dessert.
yeah, of course. Ghar is like the love story of Raghu and Aarti. That it's a beautiful love story. It starts with the simple things. They don't show that how it happened. And we talk about Rekha, the character of Rekha, wearing that simple cotton sarees and that Mangal Sutra later on. And then, in night she's changing her to that kurta, silk kurtas and lungis and everything. So that was the character of Rekha. But talking about this film, rightly how Anand said about the rape matter, the topic is such a sensitive topic, such a hard-hitting topic. In Hindi cinema, right from 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 eras, it has always been, made to titillate the audience. Most of the films, like especially in the 80s era, there used to be every film में hero की बहन का rape होता है या heroine का rape होता है, and those were shown in very graphical bad way. The Shakti Kapoor getting up or Ranjit doing and those things, and somewhere now when you look back, it feels like that was somewhere to provoke the audience or titillate them. But this film, there was not even a single nudity scene, not even a single scene. I can compare it to a series which just recently came, Delhi Crime, which was based on crime which happened in Delhi. And there was not even, they did not even show the rape thing, but still you feel the pain, you connect to the characters. That same thing was there in Ghar. That one shot where, of course, Vinod Mehra is trying to save her and she screams, that scream horrifies you. And when next shot is he's dying, is dire, and the taxi goes away. And after that, you are thinking, what happened to her? क्या हुआ होगा इस लड़की के साथ? When she wakes up, she's not able to see Vinod Mehra for 2 seconds. And that scene which Vivek, you mentioned about the bedroom scene, oh my God, how did they shoot that scene? When he's trying to be, he's just trying to hug her and she remembers that pain, that trauma, that scream, that taxi comes. All these scenes, you connect with those characters. It's very tough to connect to those characters. We have never been through such pain or something, but you can connect with Vinod Mehra's character. How Anand said, people are like calling Namar. They have not mentioned that word, but when he's walking in the lanes and everyone in his office, that Kolaba area, everybody's looking at him. He feels सब लोग मुझे देख रहे हैं. Everybody's talking about me. सब लोग मुझे point out कर रहे हैं, मेरे पे question कर रहे हैं. She is going through that he's loving me so much. I'm not able to balance it. ये scenes करना Indian cinema के लिए बहुत 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 बड़ी बात थी. किसी में हिम्मत नहीं हुई इसकी. आपने जिन्नत अमान की बात की. यस, 80s में वहां से जो शुरू हुआ था, डेथ विश वर्ड की, एवरीबडी वाज मेकिंग. आज की आवाज वाज देयर, बच्चन साहब से लेके जितेंद्र, एवरीबडी वाज इनटू दीस फिल्म्स, बट दे वर एवेंजिंग अ रेप. यहाँ पे वो टॉपिक ही नहीं था. This was about these two. That's a love story of these people. And yes, Rekha, I wish you'd have done so much more, many more films like these. Yeah. What an actress she was. And Vinod Mehra, what a supporting husband. I think सारे husbands को ऐसा होना चाहिए. This is a textbook for every husband. You should be like this. The way he talks to her, the way he treats her, he's fighting his battle, this thing, but still he's there for her. I can go on and on for Garv. I mean, it's a fabulous film, fantastic film, and the way they have balanced it. The first half is breezy romance, and you feel that the story is about Gar actually. कि ये लोग घर ढूंढ रहे हैं, Garonda की जैसी film होगी, something like that. And the second half is like totally different. They go to watch Loafer movie of Dharamji, and उसके बाद जो होता है, and that entire thing, wow.
It gives me goosebumps just talking about it right now.
See, the one element that they have kept away from the audience, and the audience is asking for it, asking for it. Will he get those guys? Will he sort of avenge her? Will he? And they do not give it to you. And you go away from the theater with that feeling inside you. And that is why this film has stayed with you, because you are still thirsting for that and you didn't get it. So the trick is always to not to give the audience everything. Keep a little away from them, and then they'll remember you for life.
Very true. So without titillating them, without sensationalizing, actually internalizing, it was not about retribution, it was about empathy. The one thing that he gave us in lavish doses was one of R.D. Burman's finest scores.
Yeah.
The music acted as a balancing act. The music acted as a bridge. The music, as you said, it was like my Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman. Until the interval, you were just having fun. You were having a trip. You were singing songs and eating popcorn and running in slow motion on Juhu Beach, and all these things were happening. Aajkal paun zameen par. And then in the second half, it was a different film. But even in the second half, Phir Wahi Raat Hai and various other things that happened. And of course, so first I want, and all three of us here are major R.D. Burman fans. So is Anand sir, so is Divya. Three things. One is first, and I've been dying to ask Divya this. I went into the theater a few years ago and I saw Sujoy Ghosh's Kahani. And in that, there is a snatch in the background. I look at Sujoy Ghosh's films rigidly with a tooth comb because he thinks he's a bigger R.D. Burman fan than I am, and he possibly is. But I never let him admit it. There was a snatch of Tere Bina Jiya Jaye Na in Kishore Kumar's voice. And I didn't. I said, I'll see the film later. I was out of the phone and with Sujoy. I said, Sujoy, where did you get this? Was it some, scam of yours? Or he said, no, Adipan was actually sung, Kishore Kumar's actually sung the song. Then why haven't we heard it? Pravesh, you as the producer, and Divya, you as a radio jockey. Why don't we have Tere Bina Jia Jaina and Kishore Kumar's voice available to the public? I'm starting with this.
Vivek, this is a very common thing which was there in the 60s and 70s. Every film used to have, they used to go beyond music. Music was not only the main thing. They used to make music and the background music and everything with the screenplay. Like, I'll give you one example of Sangam. If you watch Sangam, there is this Lata ji's version also where she's humming "Wo Ye Mera Prem Prat Padke." Or if you take Andaz, there is Rafi Saab's version and Asha Bhosle's version of this one, but they are not there in the audios or the LP records. They were there in the films. So same thing happened with Ghar. Being a Kishore Kumar, R.D. Burman diehard fans, we started, once you are done with all the music and everything, we started finding out कि चलो picture में कुछ छोड़ा है क्या. So then you find out, and suddenly when Vinod Mehra sings that line, तेरे बिना जिया जाए ना something, and that's where you get कि यार क्यों नहीं है ये audio में क्यों नहीं है. But when you hear the audio, there's sudden cut out there. Where she's singing and उसके बाद में टंग करके एक कट आता है, तो कहीं पे कुछ होगा. Maybe they must have recorded that first.
That Pravesh will tell us the truth यार. वो आपको पता है इस बारे में, आपको पता ही नहीं है?
No, I'm
Because it was
clueless.
Kishore Kumar.
I'll be honest.
So obviously Barman Da must have, since Kishore Da was there to do the snatch, he must have recorded a version of it क्योंकि +1 track तो था ही था उनके पास.
Correct.
But it's not there. Where that bloody Sujoy Ghosh found it and actually put, it was not even 20 seconds on his, because he loves putting R.D. Burman songs as little pointers in all his movies. You have to be very clever to search them and find them. So, but it's a joy to know that somewhere in the world there is Kishore Kumar singing this song. It's a joy to know.
No, we've done these things, later on the films that I was involved in. Very clearly remember in Meri Jang, we've got the theme song, various verses and versions, different moods, some sung by Kavita Krishnamurti, and of course the main one being Lataji's version. And we've actually used both in the film at different times. So
you also have Shabir Kumar version also, very small patch of Shabir Kumar in Meri Jang going on in background.
Yeah,
that's also there.
Yeah. So all of this was, it was the way it was done, and everybody was cooperative and into it without really any sort of, today it's so commercial and so hard and fast, and everybody has an agent and a contract and everything well in advance, and they won't budge an inch here and there. They won't do you, do it for the love of what they're doing.
Subramaniam Saab came, Balasubramaniam Saab, God bless his soul. And he heard Lata Mangeshkar singing Aja, Aja, Aja for Patthar Ke Phool. It was a solo song. He said, yaar, bahut pyara gaana hai, main bhi aapke paas track to hai. And he actually sang the whole song. But we put it in the album. So if you have the actual Patthar Ke Phool LP, in those days we had LPs, then there is a Lata voice and there's a Balasubramaniam voice.
So also what happened, Vivek, is when you put an extra song into the audio to answer Divya's thing, and if that becomes popular and it's not there in the film.
Oh, yes, I know what that
means. Causes trouble. The audience then it feels cheated, So it gets used.
In the 90s era, they used to fill 8 songs and picture में सिर्फ 4 या 5 गाने होते थे, 3 गाने होते ही नहीं थे.
Yeah. So
incredible. But now the other songs. आजकल पाँव ज़मीन पर, फिर वही रात है, तेरे बिना जिया जाए ना, बोतल में एक राज छुपी है.
That's his favorite. I know that.
Oh, wow, what a song. Vivek, last time also when we were discussing R.D. Burman, I said one thing that everybody keeps blaming R.D. Burman that he never used Rafi Saab. And मैंने ये भी बोला था कि हर picture में when Rafi Saab came back from Hajj, R.D. Burman was one who was using, at least giving him one song. यहाँ पे भी उन्होंने एक गाना दिया, और क्या गाना दिया था. With a proper Gulzar song with those words as मैं and bottle and Chand and Misri, proper Gulzarish song. And kya beautiful, kya Prema Nara and singing.
But yeah, but Gulzar's songs were always wet. Everything was about Gila Gila Pani or Sukha Sukha Pani. or Ansu or Pani Pani Re or Silly Hawa or Silly Mitti. Everything was drowning in his songs. Please note that without the element of water, and he told me, he said, I'm inspired by water. I think of water as dew. I think of water as tears. I think of water as something that quenches our thirst. So does poetry quench our spiritual thirst. So, but they always, Silly Hawa and Pani Pani Re and here,
Chand.
yeah, yeah, it is all over the place with Gulzar Saab's wet songs. We wouldn't have it any other way but I think that the Ghar score was one of the biggest heroes of the film. It was a score that had become popular much before the film released. Tere Bina Jiya Jaye Na was all over Vivid Bharati and in the radio program. In those days, we still had radio programs.
Vivek, Tere Binas Jiya Jaya. Now, there's this R.D. Burman's, after his death, his entire team, they used to do this shows. You must have been there in Kolkata and Pune. They used to have these shows where all the original artists were there and they used to just do instrumental versions. So that's when Ranjit Gazmer, Kancha jinne kehte the, the guy who did that Kancha thing, music. So he said that he, along with one more guy, they were just playing this music and rehearsing in a recording room. And wo jo beat hai, tang, 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 which starts the तेरे बिना के पहले तो ये सर हम लोग वो कर रहे थे पंचम दजत से चलो ये बहुत अच्छा है इससे कुछ गाना बनाते हैं they just started rehearsing and that song was done.
Correct.
एक में गाना बन गया था.
But he does that. He's used that in Chura Liya Hai Tumne Jo Dil Ko as well. He's done it in a film called Mukti. Again, Premanand and Sanjeev Kumar. We can carry on talking. Madhavji is sending me messages saying, Yaar, chalo. We have tributes to pay to Mr. Sippy and we have a lot of thank you. Yes, Divya, of course.
Just sorry, but before we are starting the film, just a chota sa trivia for everyone who's going to watch this film. Second half, mein, there is one small scene where Vinod Mehra is singing in his own voice this song.
Oh.
Yes.
Thank you very
chota
much.
Sa, one line hai, but he's going to sing that. Tere bina jiya jaye.
So I would like to, first and foremost, do thank yous and tributes. I am overwhelmed with the number of messages that have come from the film industry paying a tribute to Mr. Sippy. They're all over my phone, so I'm going to try to search for them. I've kept one ready. It's from Karishma Kapoor. I think she did Silsila Hai Pyar Ka with your father. And she says it was a pleasure working with Uncle. Always cheerful and smiling. He was a friend of the family for many years. And I'm glad I got an opportunity to work with NNCP Productions. Then there is a tribute here on the same by Ranjit Golida. I'm not going to read it, it's too long, but he says, NNCP, I had kept his pet name Jozzy. Is there a story behind him being called Jozzy? So Jozzy, and he will always remember, Zindagi Bhar Ka Ye Anjan Safar Kiske Liye. And it's a very warm tribute. Suresh Krishna has paid a great tribute. NNCP was a name in the 60s and 70s whose name spelled success. Rituparna Sengupta has said, I am so touched and happy that this tribute is happening. I have huge regards for Sippy sir, the very first producer of my debut film Tisra Kaun. Amit Khanna, because of whom we have a whole bunch of these films, and Papa Kehte Hain is producer, the film that we showed yesterday. He says he met Nari for the first time in Delhi in 1968 with Narayan Das and Gulu Sethi. I remember these names. They were legendary names of. And however, he came to know him during his Navketan days. And we talked about Amit Khanna's Navketan days yesterday as well. Ravi Gosain, who actually acted in my Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman. After Machis, my second film was Daira. And he's paid a very warm tribute. And it was a very, very great experience working with Pravesh Sippy. Usha Khanna. I remember going to Nari Saab's house when he was staying at Sion. We became family friends. When he shifted to Warden Road, our card games continued. Your father was a Sindhi, he had to play cards. My father, ever since I knew him, 8:30 he was at the radio club. He'd be back at 11:30. Sharad Saksena's wife, Ketan Desai, a very close personal friend of both Praveshji and me, and in Sippy, a tribute truly well-deserved, a true movie Mughal. There are also, and I'm searching for them right now, there's Javed Saab, there's Jitendra, there's Raj Babbar, there's Shabana Azmi, there's Chunky Pandey, Somi Ali, Javed Jaffrey, of course, you saw, and I am just trying to search for these, though it's Sameer Anjan has said, add NNCP, आज नाम याद आते ही एक खूबसूरत सा हंसता हुआ चेहरा याद आता है, which is fabulous because when you remember people when they smile, it's the best way. Shrabani Deodhar, I remember working with her husband, Debu Deodhar. He was the cameraman of Khandan, and I did 52 episodes of Khandan with him. And Shrabani at that time was not a director. It was her father, I think, who made her a director. Visionary producer who had immense passion and was abridged with every department of filmmaking. And then there's Chunky Pandey, a dear friend, co-star. I've had the honor and pleasure of being a part of NNCP production Tisra Kaun. As an actor, it was a dream come true. I have such fond and lovely memories of our location shoots, time spent with Mr. Sippy himself, one of the finest experiences of my career. I'm lucky to be part of it. Sheba, I had the privilege of working with Shri NNCP in the movie Tisra Kaun, and it's no mean privilege. In every sense of the word, he was a gentle soul, a kind-hearted producer. And would you believe the amount of people who are talking about him being gentle and a kind-hearted person over these last 3 weeks? We have talked about him shouting, fighting, making his films, being a tough producer, a tough distributor. When it finally comes down to paying a tribute, he actually epitomized the kindness and the caring. A producer was not just an employee of 20th Century Fox or whatever it is. He was the father and the mother of his unit. So on the one hand, if he didn't have money to pay them, he would tell them. On the other hand, if one of his unit fell sick, he'd be sitting in hospital all night. There was a big difference. Very, very big difference. I'm searching for the message, a beautiful message that has come from Jitendra Sahab. But there are so many, I'm inundated, but I'm so hoping that it will come out. Pravesh, if you have it, I would love you to read it out. I've done Ketan's message and dear God. If you have it, because I think that is one message you wanted us to talk about. And there are many, many more. Huh? There's Raj Babbar's message. There's Somi Ali's message. Incredible how many people have responded and have all in their own way as members of the Hindi film industry paid a tribute. If 5 people did it for me in my lifetime, I'd feel grateful, quite frankly. But no matter.
He's not there. And this is many years after Sippy Saab is not here.
You know, they have left us very, very rich legacies. They have left us memories to cherish.
I found it, Vivek.
Yes, super. Would you read it out?
Yeah. So Jitendra ji says, in this film industry, I have made some great bonds and friendships, and one of them was with the great human being, N.N. Sippy. He was a man of few words and had great talent. I had got an opportunity to work with him in Aag Se Khelenge, and I must say it was a memorable experience. N.N. Sippy was humble, knew his business, and just loved his work. He had several hits to his credit, and till date, they're all watched by even youngsters on TV. I'm glad his work is being recognized and the legend gets his due. I'm really glad that he is remembered today, and I'm grateful I knew him and got a chance to work with him. Thank you. So yeah, and then Jitendra ji, of course, went on to become a family member too. He's married to my cousin.
Yes. Shobha's your cousin?
Yes.
Ramesh is your cousin?
Yes.
Yeah. Ramesh and Shobha's mother, Katie, she's my godmother because she and her husband Gopal Das and my parents used to play cards at the radio club every night for years. She was very fond of me. And when she realized that I love movies, she would sneak me into Ramesh ji's preview theater and say, Vivek, tum jao, main Ramesh ko bataungi. So I saw Gaddar and Jabani Diwani and Dil Dewan. I don't know how many movies I saw because she was... Anyway, so that's our tributes. And now I come to my personal thanks. Thank you, Sushil ji, for the content. Thank you, Madhav ji. It's been a lot of work and you guys have done a magnificent job. Thank you, Ananth ji. And thank you, Divya, for taking out your time and coming here and doing so much. Not just a regard for NNCP Saab, but for me and for Pravesh, for Sushil ji and for Madhav ji, and for your own love for cinema. Finally, we are the real stakeholders. And to Vishnu and Vishnu's team, I can see Suhas here, and there are so many of them. Vishnuji, thank you for giving us Plexico for this festival. It's been great, and the quality of the viewing on Plexigo, everyone has told me, is very, very, very good. Behind the scenes, there's Uma Shankar, who's done an outstanding job, and my favorite, Geetika, who takes over and gets things done somehow. And she's been working with me on this festival for years now. Arpanaji, Madhav Todi's wife, who's not been here, but in the old festivals, from planning menus to becoming the then mother, making sure that all of us were fed, all of us were given breakfast, all of them were working. I think it's been a very, very major collaborative effort. So on my side, thank you very much. And Madhavji, over to you for any question answers or
Thank
any.
you, Vivek. There are just, I wouldn't take the questions because we're really running late, but there are a couple of things I must mention here. There is Amrita Chakrabarti, who's been messaging a lot and wishes to Divya ji today. And she's been highly appreciative of whatever we have been doing here. So I thought I must mention her by name as well
You
as.
must also mention that it is Divyaji's birthday today.
Yes, yes.
Happy
So,
birthday.
yes.
And
So
I
from
said,
all of us.
how does it feel to finally be 25 years old?
Just following you.
Okay. So, but thank you very much. Now, before we do that, since this has been a tribute to Shri Ananth Sippy and we have Pravesh ji here, Pravesh ji, very quickly, if you'd like to put out your thoughts before we wind up this session of this.
I started out by saying he was a giving man on day one in the first minute on this 9 days that we've been together, and today Vivek ended it with saying what he just did. So I'm overwhelmed. I'm thankful to Sushil ji, to you Madhav ji, to all our panelists, everyone. Thank you really very much, and to all the people for watching this and giving my dad his due. Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Pravesh ji. And I
I'm
think we
also overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge that Anandji and Divyaji have about your father and his stories.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Absolutely.
telling you one thing, there are many more Anandjis and Divyajis who love cinema and that era enough. If you call them, they will come in hordes. There's a deep love of cinema, which has nothing to do with getting a job at a corporate and trying to make cinema as if it's like making a crockery or cutlery. And they do exist. And this festival, this particular edition of the festival has proved it.
We proved it.
So finally,
so just
thank you, Pravesh.
so Vivek, just before we end off, I'd like our chief patron Sushil Agarwal, who is also the CEO of Ultra Media, who has kindly given us all the content for the festival, to express his thoughts very briefly. Sushil ji.
Yeah, it was a very wonderful journey of 3 weeks for this fifth edition of Lonavala International Film Festival. And I'm really thankful to all. And looking forward a great journey for the sixth LIFFI Festival. Yeah, and hope to be the best as usual. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sushil ji. So, a couple of firsts that we've been able to achieve here. I think this is the first online film festival in India, and we've gone through a lot of challenges, especially with the screening of the films. Prior to that, the chat that we've been doing here for our viewers. And I think, like Vivek said, thanks to the Plexigo team for whatever they've done for us. Obviously, thanks to Sushil ji, Ultra Media, for providing us this content. Of course, Pravesh ji for agreeing to this tribute. All our panelists, Anand ji, Divya ji, plus Anand ji, Milind ji, who had come in earlier for this festival. Vivek ji, you've been an excellent curator for the festival. I think it's now, barring the first year, you've been here involved in this festival as curator for all the years, and hopefully we will go from strength to strength. I cannot forget the contribution of Pearl Academy, where Vivek is the dean, as well as Radio 93.5. So thanks to all of them. And one learning that we've, I think, had, which all of you, I must share with all of you, is when we were having the festival in Lonavala, a limited audience, a limited number of viewers. But here, day to day, we've seen on a weekend to weekend, the growth has been exponential. So I must say that I'm overwhelmed not only by the affection that we've got from people, but the sheer number of devices that have logged into the Plexigo app to watch the festival, to watch the panel discussion. And I think it's a great learning for us, to see how this pandemic that was actually causing a deterrent in terms of having the festival has turned out to be probably something that we have learned and been able to grow the festival exponentially in terms of viewers. So thank you to all the viewers. That's most important. And cheers to you, without which the festival could not have been successful. Thank you very much, all of you. And let's enjoy this wonderful masterpiece of Shri Ananth Sippy Ghar. Thank you.